This podcast is made on the lands of the Awabakal and Worimi peoples, and we acknowledge elders past and present. In 1965, the University of Newcastle opened its doors with a vision of making tertiary education accessible to those in its region. Fast forward to today, and the university now has more than 200,000 alumni who have made a difference all over the world. Welcome to Leading Conversations, a series bringing you stories from our alumni, the people who've shaped and been shaped by the University of Newcastle. In our 5th episode, Vice-Chancellor Alex Zelinsky sits down with proud University of Newcastle alum and co-founder and co-CEO of Tiliter Technology, Chris Sampson. Chris's company has been an innovator and leader in artificial intelligence since 2018, with its world-leading AI scanning technology now used in every Woolworths across the country.
Welcome to the show, Chris.
Great to be here. Really excited and humbled to be with you.
You came to the University of Newcastle to study a Bachelor of Engineering in 2013, and a few short years after graduating, you founded the company. I know it's like all startups. You start off with one employee or two employees, and then you built it from the garage. And so maybe you could tell us a little bit about how your company got into every single Woolworths.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we started back 2017, 2018. What you'll see is when you go into the supermarket, you place an item down, it'll recognise the item instead of you having to look it up. So it's really applicable for fresh produce. You know that when you go into the supermarket, you place an item down on the self-checkout. You know, some people intentionally or unintentionally, putting through avocados as onions. And yeah, we basically implemented a computer vision technology that can recognize the item and then pass that back into the point of sale system or be used at various stages across the customer journey to automate that process. So we do it for fresh produce, so fruits and vegetables, nuts, confectionery, bakery, anything without a barcode. The real kind of tagline of the company in the early days was we recognize items without barcodes, and that's kind of been the mantra for us for the last sort of better part of a decade, but we're kind of expanding that technology now into other areas of just general computer vision and product recognition. But it was it was really exciting when we first started. It was quite innovative. We travelled around the world. We showed this to the leaders in the space, whether it be self-checkout, building in-store scales that you see a lot in Europe, and they were blown away with what we were able to do, which was amazing for us at the time, and it kind of gave us an indication that we're on the right path, and we stuck to it.
Maybe we could go back to your time at university here at Newcastle. I think you've sort of had some early memories of coming to the university before you were a student, right?
Coming to university was kind of baked into my DNA very early on. Some of my earliest memories were with my mum sitting in a lecture theatre writing notes as she was studying to become a teacher. I think I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, something like that. And
you remember that?
I remember, just one instance of it. I think I'd been there many times, but I do have a vivid memory of, I think the lecturer had said, this kid's sitting here taking notes.
How did that get you turned into engineering and choosing engineering with us?
Yeah, so it's the biggest push for me was the fact that I was a muso. I loved guitar, played music. Right. I like most, I don't know, many kids, particularly from the country, I probably had no idea what engineering was. Didn't know what an electrical engineer did at all. It was really that push in from music. I played in bands all the way through high school and continued that on here when I was in Newcastle as well. Just playing around with signals and doing music production, all that sort of stuff. I loved physics. I always had a love for physics. So I think there was some people around me who kind of pushed me, hey, you should think about engineering. But push into electrical was really the music side. So we dabbled around making our own pedals and all that sort of stuff all that fun stuff in the back end of high school. And it turned out to be absolutely the right thing for me. As I said, I really didn't know what electrical engineering was when I started. As soon as I got into it, and particularly the signal side, and as you said, Newcastle really strong in the control engineering side. As I found out later, kind of led me on into the career that I started later on. But I loved that stuff, filters, all that fun technical stuff, and it was right. It suited my passion, which was music. So it was fantastic in that way.
For over 40 years, the Walatuka Institute has remained at the heart of the University of Newcastle experience for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students. Coming from Indigenous heritage and while still in high school, Walatuka was the first place Chris visited on the University of Newcastle's campus. Once studying at the university, it was a great comfort to his parents knowing that Chris had a culturally safe space to provide support.
I kind of probably knew I was going to do some form of degree somewhere at some stage, and it was the first place we came down to visit, which was the Wallatuka Institute. I remember first getting to the campus thinking it's so big, there's so many car parks, little do you know they fill up quite fast during semester, but it looked massive to me when I first turned up. And yeah, we met a few people there, a few of the aunties at Wallatuka, and Dad knew a few people there. And I think the big thing about Wallatuka was, looking back, I'd moved around a lot when I was a kid. My family, we moved around, so I wasn't too worried about going to a new place and that sort of thing. But my parents, as a country kid, and this is a big thing, looking back as growing up in the country, people sending their kids away to a big city, so to speak, they want to know that they're looked after. And Wallatuka was that place, I think, for me and my family, where I stayed at the Juralinga hostel in Lambton. I had a meal. I had people that would look after me if I got into trouble, and it was a big thing for my parents to know that I had that support network around me. Both sides of my family, deep connections to the Indigenous community here in New South Wales. So on my father's side, I'm from the Wiradjuri tribe down in the Riverina area, and Steve, my dad, he's from the Kamilaroi tribe in the sort of northwest New South Wales. So it's always been a big part of my life, sort of. Something I probably didn't think about until later on in life, because it was just so much part of the day-to-day for me. Big thing was the rugby league knockouts, going there and seeing the families all the time. It's still a big part of the Indigenous culture. But, later on, that education side, I think it was really important to have, again, those connections, especially for my family to know that I was going to be looked after in those sorts of places. So, big part of my life. A lot of the elders from down in the Riverina area, for example, do a lot of artwork and are big figures in the Indigenous space down there. So it's a big part of my life.
Wallatuka is a very big part of the Newcastle success story. I think we've certainly it's been going now for over 42 years, and I think it's been a key to supporting Indigenous students to sort of maintain a sense of getting some support while they're studying, and then having them build that confidence to graduate. And I think we've got one of the largest Indigenous student populations in terms of over 1,500 students study, one of the largest cohorts in the country. But it's great to see you in being a bit of a pioneer for Indigenous people in the engineering space. So it's well done.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a big thing. Look, and as I said, reflecting back on it now, it's only something you realise as you get older, something I'm really passionate about. Really, I think showing that pathway and showing that there are other pathways, big things, sport, like I said, for Indigenous people. Education is another big way to grow and build the culture and grow into the community. So it's something I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, so when you were here studying back in the day, so you came from country town, from Scone, down to here, moved down here, knew a couple of people, but really it's about, I guess, forming networks and connecting. Obviously, Wallatuka was part of it, but how did you kind of establish yourself at the university and in Newcastle?
I always talk about the uniqueness of Newcastle in the sense that you really have that campus life. Compared to other places around the country, it's almost that US style of university where it's and now that with the city campus, previously it was just the Callaghan campus. There was a couple of dots here in the city, but Newcastle is really a university town. It's not out and out, but it's really becoming that. And you compare that to say places in the US where people move away from the big city to go to university. You have that here, and what you get through that is these incredible networks, people moving from all different places and across many different fields. It's a place. University is a place where you get exposed to cross-disciplinary areas in a way that you don't really get a chance to do that later on in your career. So people that you're networking with and people that you're hanging out with and you're getting to know are people who are going to be lawyers, doctors, running businesses, in the arts, whatever it may be in the future. And Newcastle, I think for me, I've got a lot of lifelong connections from here, different people in different phases of their careers now in a lot of different areas. And Newcastle's just, I think it's a really unique place in that way. I'm so glad that I came here in that way. Whenever I think back, and there's always good opportunities to come back, like today, to come back and sort of enjoy the place. But as far as a university town goes, I think it's absolutely outstanding.
Like many students today, even when Chris was studying, he had to support himself financially, whether it was delivering newspapers, installing insulation as a labourer, or working as an undergraduate electrical engineer. Chris says all these experiences gave him learning opportunities that he still draws on today.
Yeah, I was really lucky. So I had a scholarship with a mine in the Hunter Valley, a Rio Tinto mine called Bengalla. I went back there and worked all of my holidays and did a bit of like labouring work and all sorts of different things along the way. It's a couple of things. One, that work at Rio Tinto, I think, really gave me a context of, like I said, I didn't really know what engineers did, let alone what an electrical engineer did at a mine. You know, I had no idea what what was involved in that. So it gives you context when you're able to work in those environments. And for me, if I look back, I was very motivated during my studies because I could see the applicability, whether it be through what I was doing in music or what I could see in the mines. I was around that environment. It was really inspiring. I was lucky that if anyone, my advice to anyone out there who has opportunities like that, take it with two hands, because it was critical for my sort of career. It sort of landed me in good stead, you know, to sort of understand where my degree was going in industry. But it also cemented what I wanted to do, you know, doing work like labouring work and that sort of thing. You know, I enjoyed it. I love hard work, you know, getting out there and doing that sort of stuff. But I kind of knew that I wanted to do something academic, and that kind of cemented that for me. I tried many things. I had, you know, in the early days, delivering papers, working at a supermarket. Strangely enough, I'm back in retail now, which I only thought about, you know, later on in the journey. But all of those jobs, I guess, kind of fed into, yes, okay, maybe this is not what I want to do, but you take something from everything as well, whether it be labouring or working in a mine. There's always something to learn from a job that you do.
Interested to know how you kind of jump from a technology to get into every single Woolies. Can you tell us a little bit about how you did that? What was the sort of the things, and what did you know, the things you learned at uni, things you weren't maybe at Rio or where else you worked? How did that position you to cut through? Yeah,
look, it's interesting you say all that, and it's all of it helped. I think every experience I had, whether it be working at Rio or the networks, you know, the big thinking that we had, you know, going through. One of the most, you know, I mean, there's a few things I always talk about, you know, when you dealing with these organizations, you need product champions. You know, we had somebody in the organization who was really passionate about what we were doing. The timing was right. So timing is everything when it comes to technology. We were at the right time. I was lucky enough to work at a company called Cochlear, which was a biomedical company.
Organisation.
Yes. And that was a real pivotal one as well. They're a global company, absolute leader in their space. And I think I had the conviction that we could do the same. You know, we could take on the world. And because we had that attitude and we were able to sell into Germany, and I guess for organisations, say in Australia, say Woolies, you know, we were the leader. We were the absolute leader. And you know, we still are. We're still, as far as our technology goes, very few in the world that can come close to our recognition performance. All of those things stacking up, right? We needed to make sure we were talking to the right people. Timing was right, but we pushed hard. We were really passionate about what we were doing. We understood it better than anyone else. We showed the value to the retailer, and you know, the rest was history. And we it was as you said, a tough road. It takes a long time to do business with enterprise. You've got to be ready for the long haul. It's so hard for startups because you need those quick wins, and they're hard to get with an enterprise. You know, it took us from the very first install to full rollout was, you know, over 4 years. And for a startup, that was in the midst of COVID too. So for a startup, it can be death.
That's right.
But if you stick to it and you're passionate and you're the best at what you're doing, you're thinking big, you can make it happen. But you know, as I said, we had some great product champions as well, and there's a few people in the Woolies organisation who really pushed the product along, and the success is owed to them as well.
I mean, Cochlear is an iconic Australian company, which is an invention out of a university. It went through a lot of development, and it's the world leader. I think you would have learnt a lot of powerful lessons that you've probably been able to take from that organisation and think that, and have that vision that I can be a world leader and be global.
Absolutely. And it's something I'd say for me, you know, looking forward, it's something I'm super passionate about in Australia. We don't talk about those sorts of things enough. You know, Cochlear, an Australian invention, a world leader. It's a bionic ear. It's an incredible product. I was lucky enough to go through there. So I did a graduate program there. I worked there for a few years, worked on test systems, saw inside the organisation from marketing to manufacturing, the whole lot. And that was something I think that I would say gave me and the team the conviction, hey, we can do this. You know, I've seen it happen. You know, I've seen a company from Australia go global, and it's something that I think I would love to see more Australian companies think about. Go overseas, take that leap. You know, we drove all over the US, we went to Europe. I was lucky enough to have a German co-founder as well, which, you know, there was a few pieces along the way that kind of stacked up. A lot of the time, honestly, it's just thinking, hey, we can sell globally. I know a few companies here in Newcastle who are right now selling internationally, and we don't talk about these enough, and we need to do a lot more of this because it's something that, we have outstanding universities here, the caliber of students that come out, fantastic. Often they'll go overseas. How can we, build more companies here? But we had that conviction from Cochlear 100%. It was an absolutely critical part of my journey. I loved the business, it's, and I just kind of wanted to do something myself, but I could see myself going back there at some stage. It was a fantastic organisation to work for.
More investment than ever is being directed into the development of AI. Chris says AI will change everything. However, he remains optimistic about its future, believing that we'll be able to adapt to the changes that it brings. He thinks, ultimately, we'll come to see it as an immensely positive tool.
It's exciting now. What's the amount of investment that's going into AI is more than ever before. We've seen some incredible breakthroughs in the last couple of years, and yeah, I think it is going to change everything. It's a huge moment for us industrially. As a community, that our organisations, they're going to change in a big way. I think I'm an optimist. I think we'll adapt. We'll learn how to use AI, and it'll become a tool. We're starting to see I would say a leveling off in terms of the improvement. Right now, you have the opportunity with GPT or Gemini, these type of chatbot tools, to engage with probably something that knows more about every domain than any individual you'll ever get to speak to. So I was lucky enough to speak with some of the really senior people at Meta recently about what they're doing there, and they're quite bullish about where it's going. They're investing huge amounts, $600 billion over 3 years, which is in the order of some government investments, entire country investments into data centers and that sort of thing. But they're kind of hitting it with a sledgehammer at the moment, hoping it works. So far, it's continuing to work, and we're getting massive returns out of it. But I don't see it replacing us where the technology space is right now. I think there's another step change we need to understand. But nonetheless, it's what we have is amazing. And I think my advice to everybody in this, whatever industry you're in now, you should be using it. You should be working out how it's going to affect your industry. You should be becoming an expert in using it, and that's how you're going to stay on top of it. I think that's the way to go.
Regurgitating facts or getting students to remember, it's probably not as important now. You need to be across things and how to probably use the technology to help you. But the key is always to filter out the noise and actually to make sure that you're getting the right answers. But it's effectively getting someone to help draft something, and then you have to actually perfect it.
I believe so. I think it's very similar to when calculators first came out. I mean, the technology is much more advanced, but people were saying the same things back then. We're not going to know how to add, we're not going to know how to do all these things, right? And I think that we've just adopted that. Essay writing may still be a thing. If you need to learn how to write an essay, you'll still do that, but maybe you don't have to now, and that's the difference.
Will AI do everything? Maybe it will one day, but I don't think that version of the AI exists yet. That can do that sort of continuous learning.
Yeah, that's a big thing. But we've been watching it, and look, this is probably something we've thought about now over the last sort of 12 months. You're starting to see the companies starting to run out of data, and that leveling off. There was this massive step change, I think, between say GPT 2 and 3, and then 3 and 4 was also pretty big, but 4 and 5 less so. More money than ever been invested. So I think again, I think it's going to change everything, but the idea that it's going to be absolutely ubiquitous and do everything that humans can do, I don't think that's the case. But nonetheless, as a product innovator, if you're an innovator today, there's never been a better time. How quickly you can build things, how quickly you can iterate, you can learn. Your access to knowledge is better than ever before. So we're really excited about it. I think for me, AI is we're gonna continue to use it. It's going to help us build products, and it's really exciting.
So maybe give us a tangible kind of example. Okay, at the moment you sort of recognise non-labelled, barcoded foods and materials inside a supermarket. What's next for Tiliter?
I mean, as I said, really exciting times. A lot of the things that we've been to trade shows around the world. We've been selling our technology, and we've been quite innovative in what we've been doing. When we first showed our technology at trade shows, people were blown away with this idea that you had a technology that could tell the difference between a pink lady and a Royal Gala apple. This was amazing. They'd ask us all these other things that we could do. Hey, could you count this? Could you identify these things? And from a technology point of view, we always said, yes, we could, but it's going to take 6-12 months to build a model, to do with these sorts of things. Now we're able to do things like generic counting, doing cleaning assessment using images, all sorts of things with very little investment initially, because we can take these huge large language models and tailor them for these types of applications. So for us, our next phase is really about building bridges between this huge investment in what AI can do now and these new applications that have always been there. People have been asking us about these for years, but the technology just hasn't been there, but it's getting there now, which is awesome.
So you're saying you can do rapid prototyping.
Correct. Yeah.
So you do a proof of concept, and if the customer likes it, then you could actually refine it into a real product.
100%, and that's always been a big barrier. When you look at these projects, you know yourself from this computer vision space. You know how long it takes. There's a difference between getting something that works okay in a lab and getting something that actually works well industrially. And that's been the journey for us with the fresh produce recognition. It's actually getting it working across thousands of stores across the globe. It takes a lot of effort. So we have to be really choosy about those ones that you chase, because is the value proposition there when you deliver a project? Is the company going to want to take it to the next step? But now we can sort of put something in front of companies, say, hey, this is possible. You could get user testing. You can put it in front of the user, see if they actually want it, because what people say they want and what they actually want when you put it in front of them can change. And you burn cash, you burn capital doing that very quickly. Now we can prototype much faster, but even more than that, honestly, the capability that we have now in these models to do vision solutions, I would say, is it's production ready as well for many applications. Right. We still build our own model for doing our product recognition. It's not there yet, but I always say to the team, the day we can switch it over, we will, because we're about actually delivering the solution and the product. It's not necessarily about building the technology, it's about actually delivering the product itself. So that's what we're really excited about. We started the company with that thesis that we wanted to make computer vision easy, and we finally have the technology to do it, which is super exciting.
If we think back to the days you were a student, and if you're starting today, going back to university, and you thought, what advice would you give to some of our fresh students?
Be bold, be fearless, follow your passions. For me, that's been something I've always done in my journey, and it's always returned rewards. I think don't be afraid to do something a little bit different if that's what you believe is right, and trust that it will get you where you need to go. There's been many stages along my journey where people around me have been very skeptical about maybe the step that I was taking. Even going back to, I did loudspeakers for my final year project. It was a bit strange for an electrical engineer to build loudspeakers for a final year project, but that led me on to an acoustic group, to Cochlear, to all the things that we did in the future. So that's my number one message. Be fearless, be bold, and trust that, following what you think is right is going to take you where you need to go.
So you obviously were involved in student life, but so your involvement at university was really made, you sort of got into the music scene.
Yeah.
That was your kind of extracurricular activity. So that's probably really important. So there's more to, because you were obviously studying, you're also working, you're also letting off steam or giving that creative element through a few music. And I think that's really important to have those balance of interest.
100%. Yeah. For me, it took me a long time. I'm very much a technical thinker, academic type of thinker. It took me a long time to realize that music was art. I think once I actually realized that, the whole new world kind of opened up to me, And it was that thing, like you said, that was outside of uni. It was the passion. And they always say, the old saying, looking back, connecting the dots is easy, but looking forward is hard. Looking back, music has been the thread for me all the way along. Even, as you said, even the AI space, the signals, the way that you're dealing with filters and all those types of technical things, they're actually really applicable to AI. A lot of the things that I learned, studying at Newcastle in the signals and systems courses, they apply directly to the way that AI is built today. And it was the music thread that kind of pulled me along all the way, that pushed me. So like I said, that's follow your passion. You never know where it will lead. It's been an exciting journey in that sense.
So Chris, Tiliter's really obviously been very successful in this space of retail product recognition for items that don't have barcodes, and that's your shtick, and you've done it really, really well, and you're a global leader. You're doing that. Some might say stick to your knitting, but there's also, because the technology is like computer vision is a very generic technology. What are you thinking about the next big thing for Tiliter in terms of new products?
Yeah, absolutely. So earlier this year, we launched a Vision Agent platform. So it's really about leveraging the huge investment that's happening in AI now and unlocking new use cases that we couldn't attack in the past, that we had customers coming to us asking about, hey, can you do this? Can you count this? Can you identify these items on a manufacturing line? We're able to do those things now with the investment that's happening in AI, where we're taking some of that technology. We've worked in this space for the better part of a decade, so we really know the computer vision space well, and it's about using this vision agent platform to apply vision agents to unlock these exciting new use cases.
So what is this? So it's more like a scale, like you're counting products and helping packaging, or
it's really wide. It's a really broad. So counting is a big thing. Believe it or not, counting has been a very difficult thing. I mean, you would know, again, in the computer vision space, counting is not it's not an arbitrary task. It's quite a difficult thing to do. There's been some models that have come out recently that can do that really well. So we're looking at applying those for certain applications. But there's also some other applications like assessing scenes in a very unique way. So one of the applications we have is something called Clean Sight, which is able, from an image, able to assess the cleanliness of a space. And these types of applications are something in the old computer vision world very difficult to do. Now we can apply AI today to do these applications.
Like spillage in aisle 4 and send a robot over there to clean it up.
Similar. But even then, those types of applications were about identifying something. Yeah. Now you have AI that can actually take full context, can actually be explained. You can explain to it what you actually want, and you can apply that in computer vision in really unique ways. So it's a very new space. Not a lot of people are talking about it at the moment because there's so much investment in the chat space. Everyone's focusing on the language capability of the AI today. But there are huge multimodal capabilities that are coming out of AI. It includes vision, sound, all sorts of other applications that you can apply this AI to, which is that's what we're looking at. How can we unlock these vision applications using the AI that we have available today?
I was very interested in 20 odd years ago when we were working on our people type related technologies. Like we were approached by supermarkets and shopping centres to do people counting, how many people entering supermarkets. I've never really seen that really take off. Is there any reason? Is it just privacy reasons? People are worried about that kind of tech because obviously you can anonymize it, but how do they know how many people are coming in, or they can measure that with other ways?
Yeah, look, there's multiple other ways, definitely. So infrared and those sorts of things. There's ways to do it in that way. There are some companies, an Australian company actually who does quite a bit in that space. So the people counting side, I wouldn't say it's a completely solved problem, but it's in that realm. I would say same with car counting, any generic objects you can do, and that's quite simple, but it's very not non-trivial to take models like that and tailor them for other applications. Until recently, we're able to do pretty incredible things now. But the people counting side, it's something you will see around. You might not see it necessarily always in your face. There are privacy concerns about it.
Of course.
Generally, companies will do it on the edge rather than send it back to the cloud and those sorts of things. But it's around. Yeah.
Fantastic. So it's a wonderful story, Chris, and we wish Tiliter and you and the rest of your company a wonderful future and all the best.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, always.
This was Leading Conversations with University of Newcastle Vice-Chancellor Alex Zelinsky, talking with Co-CEO of Tiliter Technology and proud graduate of the University of Newcastle, Chris Sampson. This podcast was recorded on Awabakal and Warramai lands at the University of Newcastle's New Space campus. To hear more stories from inspiring leaders, be sure to tune in to the next episode featuring Storm Menzies, founder of By Storm Beauty. Until then, this was Leading Conversations with University of Newcastle Vice-Chancellor Alex Zelinsky.